one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all very much. And the next item is approval of agenda. If I could have a motion to approve the agenda for tonight.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? No? Mr. DeMarco?
Mrs. Mass.
Yes.
Mrs. Sinners. Dr. Lefay.
You said yes.
He said yes.
Oh, sorry. Mrs. Hartley.
Yes.
Jones.
Okay. Next on the agenda is audience community comments. I only have one. Each person address the board will have to submit their name and address, which I have, and the topic for the start of the meeting. You'll have 5 minutes, total of 30 minutes allowed for input. No person may speak twice until all who desire to speak have done so. So I only have one. If anybody else is interested in speaking, I would appreciate if you fill one of these out. If not, Mrs. Springer.
If you want people to
Microphone.
hear you,
Oh,
we should
microphone,
probably
yeah.
go over there.
Okay. Kind of short. My name is Amy Springer, and my address is 403 Winona in Huron, and I'm the Vice President of the Athletic Boosters. And all I have to say tonight is I just wanted to let everybody know that our golf scramble is coming up. We're teamed up with both golf teams, and it's on June 3rd out at Thunderbird Hills North. And tickets can still be purchased at our website, HuronBoosterClub.com. Information's on Facebook, on the Huron Tiger Athletic Boosters. And anyway, if you have any questions, let me know before the meeting's over. And it's going to be a busy month. We have scholarship banquet next week, graduation, and we have our budget meeting this coming week. So next month, I like to present, maybe get on the agenda and present what we passed in our budget. So that's about it. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Okay, item 4, administrative reports. Dr. Tapman.
All right, thank you. So as we've been doing each month, we have a building or department presentation. So I'm going to turn it over to Holly Charville to present about student services.
Loud voices, but we'll come over here for the sake of the folks at home. Again, Holly Charville, Special Education Director in charge of student services. And tonight, what I asked Mrs. Johnson, who is one of our high school intervention specialists, to come and share some information that is happening at our high school with regard to the pre-employment and transition program that we have taken upon ourselves to provide our students. So I don't want to steal her thunder. I'm going to turn it over to her. And any questions? Okay.
I don't know how much thunder there is, but so I think over the years, and this is kind of a long time coming, we've noticed that some of our students are leaving without some of the skills that maybe isn't in the regular curriculum as far as employment transition, like transitioning to independent living, interpersonal relationships, and things like that. So we are offering a class, Pre-ETS, which stands for Pre-Employment Transition Services. And this year it was a class. Next year we only have one senior with the way it shook out with kids going to EHOVE. So I think we're going to maybe not do it as a class, but do it as like a pull her from study hall and work with her, unless the need arises with anyone else. Things that we work on, teaching them about banking, hygiene, conversation skills, like mock interviews, work on their resumes, just that extra bit of building them up so that they can be a successful independent adult. Do we have any questions about it, or?
So I do.
Yes,
So
please.
This sounds like a phenomenal opportunity for students.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a prerequisite for students that are able to sign up for this class?
No prereq. no prerequisite or requirement to be like on an IEP or 504 plan or anything. It's actually open to anyone. We do have one student right now who's not, but could use the extra support. So
So any student can sign up for
yeah, it's in the curriculum.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Wow.
Planning
Sounds
plan.
extremely beneficial.
Yeah, I really do think so. And you know, we've always like taken pieces and parts of different things, and Mary Jean Balda has given us a whole bunch of stuff that we've used, but now we have an actual curriculum to follow. And some of the things may be too low for some students, so it just gives us like a jumping off point, an idea, or to get other ideas and other resources. And next year, I think we want to start incorporating like some of our people in the building that know about things, like how to recognize if, oh, your shower's leaking, you should probably, you know, tell someone or call someone. Just things that maybe they weren't taught. I know Officer Labsinger said he'd also be very helpful with whether it's like the law side of things or just like household things. And he's right across the hall from me, so I'm gonna call on him sometimes to be a resource. And
One thing we found too with our pre-ETS program, the pre-ETS has been around. So it came out of Bureau of Vocational Rehabilitation. And it was initially offered just to students who had an IEP that were looking at transitioning from high school and the skills that they might need, whether it's pre-employment or career exploration. And so they would, BVR would find a provider, which typically in this area has been Goodwill Industries, that would come into the school and teach those courses. What we were finding was the relationship wasn't there. And so when the state opened it up for districts to be able to be that provider, that's when we thought, wow, what a great opportunity for our teachers with the information they had and the rapport they already had with students to bring that to light in the classroom. And so that has been the nice thing of it all. So we now don't have kids saying, well, I don't want to work for I don't want Goodwill working with me. I want to work with Mrs. Johnson. So
yeah,
that's been a benefit. And of course, Amy had mentioned our numbers are low next year because we always have to play the EHOBI game. So we still aren't missing out on the opportunity. They just wouldn't have our teachers teaching that
right.
program.
And that relationship thing is really big. You know, after 4 years of this, you know, working with a student, I get to know them pretty well. But even just like the hygiene conversation, we have to lather our soap and we, you know, things like that I could find maybe they would be offended if somebody from the outside talked to them about that, but we're there. We've been 4 years in the making of being able to have those conversations. And I actually have 2 students right now, just as an example, who are both shy and withdrawn. And I like coordinated for them to exchange phone numbers so that they could, and then now they chat with each other, and I'm like, yes, but it is not part of the curriculum, and I don't know, skills. And I talked to both of their parents too, like, this is encouraging, you know, you have, you know, you guys like to chat in class, maybe they're both graduating seniors, so maybe you guys would chat outside of school, and it fits into this curriculum with the relationship part.
And then I might add, just to kind of go back in time a little bit, we sat down with Mrs. Mast, and it's actually a grant. So we started this out as a grant through ODE. It helped us to defer some of the costs incurred for requirements that are outlined in the grant. And then the hope, hopefully next year, as we get certified as a provider, is to recoup some of those funds. It'll be more of like your bake sale funding money. We're not talking anything large, but they can actually bill back some of the time they spend with students in those courses.
I just have one more thing. I think this has been a little scattered in my own. I thought it would flow a little better, but our transition goals for all of our students is how are they going to be successful in education, independent living, and employment. So we cover those 3 umbrellas, and that's part of their IEPs that we have to follow. And this class like gives us more of that time to really work on those 3 sections, or the transition section with those 3 little mini umbrellas.
there a curriculum that you foresee maybe in the future that this could even go to junior high level?
It absolutely could.
Mhm.
That's a great question, because once our children turn 14,
Yeah.
in IEP world, they should start working on these services. So this curriculum actually lends itself to that. We've started it at the high school only because of the way that the school schedule set up and the
Mhm.
electives. But our middle school has electives too, so that would be an easy way to a segue for that. Just to recoup again some of that.
Sure. Sure.
It's kind of something we've been doing that we've had to do, but now it's a home in a place that gives us the time we need to do it.
That's phenomenal. It sounds like you guys keep going back to the IEP, even though it's open to anybody. But the kids know that it's like
Yeah, so
there's
Mary,
no stigma attached to it. It's kind of
I would
put out
hope
there to
not.
everybody.
Mary James presented it with when she went to talk to the incoming juniors and seniors for their little what classes are going to be offered, and I had a student, not one of mine, who was like, "Oh, I heard that you're teaching this class." So it is. I know their schedules are tight as it is to like fit in different electives, but it's open.
And if you've ever been in the high school and walked around, if you walk into either of our 2 intervention specialist classrooms, it's a place to be, and there's people, friendly faces and voices, and people that are willing to lend a hand to even do calculus if they had to, even though.
I know that's my. I always say February of algebra 2 is where I'm like, okay, I can't do any more math. Finish line for math.
That's very different from independent living, in my opinion.
Sync leaks.
Safe place for sure.
Thank you, Ben.
Thank you very much.
Thanks
Thank you
a
so
lot.
much.
Let us know if you have any other questions if you think of them. But it's really awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right.
Next, I first would like to say welcome again to Lisa. I'm so glad you're here. And I think James probably has something he wants to say. I just make sure we give you the opportunity that if you have any concerns that has been brought to you or that you know about or any questions of us, in this part of the agenda would be appropriate if you want something up or ask something of us. Not trying to put you on the spot, I apologize.
Anything interesting happening this weekend?
On this weekend.
Oh, there's that.
Yeah. So, prom's this weekend, and then graduation is next Friday.
Anything after prom happening?
There's after prom at Kalahari, but and then student council elections this past week. So
Know anybody who won?
Lainey Orzak is student body president, and then Drew Eck is student body vice president, and then I'm senior class president. So that's about the big.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Those are the big updates from the high school. Where is prom being held this year? Some place in Norwalk. I don't know it off the top of my head.
That's Nate's quote too.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Awesome.
Isn't that the place that's like a barn?
Yeah, it's just a big open room
Yeah, that's
right
right.
off Main Street. Yeah, it's by Blue Rose.
There's a DJ or a band or.
I think there's a DJ.
Okay.
I wasn't really on prom committee, but
Thanks. Once again, thanks for being here. We're
Have fun.
excited to have this happen. And we'll
Yeah,
take
no,
your
I would
thunder,
just-
sir.
No, you're good. And that's really what it was. It's just I was going to ask Lucy to kind of give a recap or highlights of what's happening in the next couple weeks, and she did that. And so that's excellent. And also, Mr. Lamb shared with me that this Friday, this week is seniors last week, and traditionally seniors do. I don't want to call them pranks because they're in good spirit and they're wholesome, right? They're not harmful. Yeah. So Mr. Lamb has recommended to me that I maybe go to McCormick about 7:30 on Friday, because maybe there's going to be a little like impromptu parade of seniors going down the street around to the high school. So again, I'm not trying to spoil anything, but maybe. you know, if others want to join and celebrate, that's maybe a great opportunity to do that. Thanks, Lucy.
You want to do a photo?
I do. We can do that in a little bit.
Okay, how do you know if you want to do it?
There's a spring, the spring arts festival is tomorrow night at 6.
Yeah, so spring arts, so visual and performing arts tomorrow night. And then Thursday at, well, it's at the high school, but it's the junior high awards banquet. And then next week, Wednesday, at the Cedar Point Center is the seniors scholarship night. So those annual activities as well. Busy times, but good times. And I keep reminding staff, pause to celebrate those, you know, annual recognitions and whatnot, because it's been a busy school year, but it's always good to, you know, pause, reflect, and enjoy those moments. So, yeah, so before we jump to academic affairs, I do want to insert one other topic, and that is OSBA, the Ohio School Board Association, has the annual Business Honor Roll Recognition Program, and they do that in May. And so when I got the email from OSBA and it said, you know, nominate a business, without hesitation, I said, I know the perfect one to do. And I invited Jennifer Bush here from the Huron Public Library to come for that recognition. And it's really because of all the collaboration that the schools do with the public libraries. They are in our buildings a ton. At the beginning of the year, I got confused thinking that Miss Melissa was our own. And she's not. She's a Huron Public Library employee who does engagement. And we're always looking at ways to enrich that engagement and really encourage kids to get to the public library. We value those print literature as well as the digital print or digital media that everybody loves. But really having that book in hand or magazine and finding a quiet space to read, whether it's in the library or at a beach as the weather warms up here. So I have this certificate I'd like to present her on behalf of the school board. And it states, Huron City School recognizes Huron Public Library for their overall contributions to our schools and exemplary service to our community. It's signed by Board President.
These newfangled cameras. Thank you
Yes,
so
thank
much
you.
for everything you do.
Thank you.
Nice to see you. Thank you, James.
All right, now we'll turn it over to Julie.
All right. Lots of good things happening, but I will keep it short. Just to let you know, you may have seen some pictures that we tweeted out last week. Officer Lapsinger has completed our peace officer interaction training with our freshman crew this year. That is new for the classes coming in as freshmen. We use the model curriculum that the state had put out, and he's used it up and made it relatable for kids. Did some demonstrations, some role playing, that interaction. And so going forward, each incoming freshman class will have that opportunity to do that training. So we waited till testing was mostly over and went into the freshman class, into Steph Lee's room, and he got that done. So appreciate him doing that. Kids asked great questions, and it was needed. It was a good piece. So I had talked previously a little bit about our social studies adoption coming up. I do have some samples of the 5th and 6th grade. This is the front runner, if you will, of what the teachers are looking at. So it's 4th grade, if you recall, is Ohio history, and then of course we move into Western and Eastern Hemisphere. So what these workbooks are is a consumable, but most of the curriculum actually is online. So about 80% with this company. The reason this is the front runner, Laura Hamrock has been piloting it. It's specific to Ohio. So we're not, this company only deals in 6 different states, their standards. We're not thumbing through trying to pick out everybody else's history while we're trying to do our own. A lot of times too, our social studies and science, when we come down to it, with redoing schedules, they'll get more time, but typically after reading and math, There's not a whole lot of time. We're doing better, but not super thick. They do other projects as well. So I will pass these around. You can look at them. They do have sample written all over them, so we don't photocopy them. Not that we would. But the teachers really like this. And the teachers are getting shortly to go over that interactive part. Of course, that we'll be using the Chromebooks for. But that one right there is the front runner for right now. The other thing they like about it is, as you know, traditional textbooks, you print them, and about as soon as they're printed, they're out of date. With this company, it's a package purchase that they can reprint because that is consumable. They can make changes as they happen. So that was one of the things we liked about that too. So with that, my last update, some more good news. Today is day 4 of our first curing period for the track. So yeah, it looks nice, right? That is the asphalt that went down. It looks like not a whole lot is going on right now, but you will start to see the fence work going in, the drainage and the long jump area is in. The guys today were standing in the pit. You can just see like the top half of them. So that is being worked on. And also today we did receive out of our phone call last week new drawings we asked for some additional drainage work along the south fence. If you recall in the original pictures, the runways, in between the runways, we were putting in drainage up into that creek to come out to Jim Campbell. Just so happened to rain when Vasco was on site, and they said, I think we're going to need a little bit more by that fence. So we had that conversation with Kaylee last Wednesday, and about 5 o'clock today, we got the first drawing in. So we've asked Vasco to price that out. So hopefully they could do that soon before we agree to what that part of the game plan is. But as of right now, good news is that the project is still on budget and due to be completed on time. So knock on wood, Mother Nature has been kind. So things are going well there. So questions?
Thank you.
Julie?
Okay, Mr. DeMarco.
So not to pile on all the good news, but I have more good news as well. In the last couple weeks, there's been some shifts. Everything that was bad about the new budget in Columbus seems to have fallen off, and some good things happened that I wasn't expecting with the state fully funding the new school funding formula. So there is more revenue coming in than anticipated. So with this 5-year forecast, I'm really comparing November to now, like what's changed since then. This is an update. It's not like a true, like it is a full one, but so revenue is almost 600,000 higher than I projected. A couple things happened. Our year-over-year tax increases, 10-year average is around 2.5%. This year it was 3.7. That extra point plus provides quite a bit of revenue. A smaller thing, even the county auditor, when he advanced us our most recent tax settlement, I went back and figured, because he did 2 rounds, and just giving us that money early, it allowed us to earn $28,000 in interest income. So, and our interest income, I never thought we'd be at 5. We're over 5% right now in a money market in Star, Ohio. So it looks like the recession that was supposed to happen starting in the summer got pushed back at least 6 months. I do think interest rates now are as high as they're going to get. So it might be time, because we do have a little bit of cash we could lock up in a CD or something like that at a high rate, 5%. It's time to think about doing some things like that. As far as expenditures, nothing really. I was within 1.5% of what I thought we'd spend this year, or what we're on pace to spend this year. A little high on salary, but our fringe benefits have been lower, so it almost offset. Now going forward, this is where it gets tricky. Fiscal 23 is accurate. Fiscal 25 is accurate. It's next year that's really hard to project what's going to happen. There's going to be some major swings, a few big things that happen that are going to change, the school's finances. Of course, the Shawnee sale and property, the renovations at the buildings, those will all be captured in fiscal 24. So you see a huge variance in that year, and then things will stabilize in 25 and 26 to get a more of an accurate look going forward. But the graphic there shows our general fund, the cash cycle. So good that the blue line, which is revenue, it's not increasing at a huge amount, but it's not decreasing, which is good. So there's still growth in revenue, which is better than what I even thought a couple weeks ago. You do see the big gap in fiscal 24. And then after 25, our expenses will outpace our revenue, but that's almost always going to be the case as you go 2-3 years out. Again, if I do this forecast in 2 months, it might look very different. But for a May update, our fiscal 23 is, that information is solid. Next year, it's going to be kind of a wild ride with the big projects and other things going on. So that's what I have for that. With the new, at the bottom there, with the state injecting more money into the funding formula, it swung about $300,000 difference from what I was thinking, even 2 weeks ago. So it's pretty significant. So you're not always going to get good news coming out of Columbus, but I think it was a big win for all public schools, but it really helps us because we don't get a lot of help from Columbus, but this time we did. So that's the forecast. Other than that, I think I hit on, we're doing over $30,000 a month in interest income, which is great. Now, as we spend down our cash, it's gonna continue to decrease, but it's impressive, what we're doing. It's not that we're doing anything. It's just interest rates are very high right now. We seem to be at the high point, so it's, like I said earlier, it's time to think about locking up some cash, so we can keep earning that income going forward. And then going forward overall, next month is a big month. I'll bring the final appropriations for this year, the temporary appropriations for summer, contracts. As far as advances, it looks like we're going to have to put a small amount into athletics, kind of in line with what's typically been a transfer. And then I'm still working with food service. She's almost wrapped up the fiscal year. We'll have to transfer, and I know that's typically the case, but I'll need to ask for that. And then budget and purpose statements, I'll need a whole bunch of those next month too. So I'll try to collect as many as I can. That's all I have.
Questions for Mr. DeMarco? No?
Right. So first, I just want to start with school safety. And so we continue to work on school safety. We have that grant money. Some things have been appropriated for purchase as far as the radios, the third entryway at Woodlands. We are still working to finalize the window film. So on all entryways, we would have that security window. When I shared that information with Officer Lobsinger, he was like, "Oh, this is great." And the one tech that walked around with me and did the measure, confirmed our measurements, she was throwing out stats like, with this film on, 14 mil film, it would make someone spend 1 minute and 43 seconds longer to bash through this window. I'm like, okay, that's a number, I guess. But when I shared that with Officer Lobson, he was, "Oh, that's perfect because we've tested it and we can clear the high school cafeteria in," I think he said, 38 seconds. So it's basically triple that number is what it would take for that person. So seconds matter, time matters, and when Huron PD is responding to one of our schools, that minute and 48, that stat she threw out, that does make a difference. So we're working on that. The other is, as we consolidate as we consolidate buildings and there'll be more kids at Woodlands. You know, one of those things is, hey, Woodlands has a lot of corridors, a lot of hallways. There's outdoor recess. There's a lot of opportunities where not threat level, but hey, we need to call someone for help because, you know, on the playground, Billy skinned his knee. We're going to have to get him into the school nurse, and we need help with that, or just any kind of general support need. And so there is a product that we're looking at, and it's actually right here. It's the size of Staff ID. This is it. There's a button here that if you push it 3 times, vibrates, and that actually sends a message to the app system where on the principal's smartphone, he'll get an alert that says someone's pushed this button, here's their location in the school building. And so he still doesn't know what's going on, but he knows that someone there needs help. So the main office secretary, the building principal, and others can get that alert and then go quicker, respond quicker to that need. And so then there's also, if you push it like a lot of times, it does more than that. It sends a message to dispatch. So they also, it can be set up to contact dispatch. So again, dispatch doesn't know what the issue is other than somebody needs help and they need help quickly. So we're looking at that for the Woodlands building. It's not a cheap product. And when you look at the age and the structures of the high school and the middle school, they're smaller footprints. The high school is basically 2 straight hallways. You can look down the hall pretty quick to see, you know, what's going on. But that Woodlands where the kids are littler, they're at playground, and there's all these nooks and crannies or hallways with, you know, turns and stuff, that might be something that would be really beneficial for school safety. So we're looking at that. The other item is the building closure, the move and consolidation. So leading up to spring break, it was all planning, theory. Here's how we're going to do it. And now that we've returned from spring break, we're starting to do it. And a little bit of panic has set in. Not because we don't have a good plan, but just because the reality is here. We're moving out of this building. It's time sensitive. We need to, you know, continue to clear out this building. So if a new owner comes in September, we're 100% out. And then moving classrooms within Woodlands and McCormick and a little bit the high school. Again, just that panic of, you know, end of year crunch that naturally happens. And now I have packing on top of it. And, you know, there's some other factors that in the planning didn't come out until later. But we're coming together. Julie, Chad, myself, we've been meeting with staff, hearing their concerns, addressing their needs. On tonight's agenda, there is some additional classified subs that we're looking to have hired so that we can start utilizing them right away. And then also on there is a summer crew that we typically don't hire, but this is to help with the move. So I think, you know, while I'm not naive and think no one has stress and no one's nervous about this, I think staff are embracing the challenge that they have in front of them and they're ready to do the work. And really, it's going to be everyone lifting a little bit so no one's feeling overburdened with that. So we're, you know, we're progressing with that. And then the last is just with the board agenda. You know, 3 weeks ago now, we finished classified contract negotiations. So that agreement's on here. It's already passed through the classified union. And then we have some service contracts as well. Those are standard. Class of 2023 candidates for graduation. So that's the list of students that we're anticipating seeing next Friday night. And obviously we still have to verify that they've met all the requirements, and the high school's guidance department does that. But that's the list there. And then we have our the start of our 23-24 school year supplementals and stipends. So this isn't all of them, but these are a good chunk of them for supplementals and stipends as we get ready for the new school year, and really as they start doing their summer programming for sports and other activities. They have the confidence that they have that contract, and we know that we have a provider, so that's good. So unless there's any other questions, that's what I have tonight.
Anybody have any questions? Dr. Tatler? Okay. Move to item 8, motion for approval of consent agenda items 5 through 7.
So moved.
Thank you very much.
I will second.
Thank you. Any discussion, comments?
I have a question. What is the cost of the safety cookie thing?
Yeah, so for us to have Woodlands, for it to be implemented at Woodlands with a 5-year agreement, it would be just under $50,000. So
A year or?
no, for the whole 5 years. So about,
Okay.
you could say 10,000 a year, but we have that safety grant money that we can pay it up front, and that gets us that little bit of, there is a little bit of a discount for a multi-year. And then installation, that's out the door, done. And that includes installation and then the month or the annual dues. So when our 5 years is up and we want to renew another 2, 3, 5 years, it shouldn't be that same dollar amount. It should be something less because it's already implemented. Yeah.
I mean, I think for safety, that's a small price to pay.
So June 7th, we have a meeting with staff and admin to look at this product, hear the demo. The safety committee has heard it, but we need more. We obviously need teacher buy-in for it. And so we want to have a demo with them, with teacher representatives involved, support staff representatives involved. So they're not feeling like this is something pushed on them, but that, you know, they're understanding the purpose, reason, and they're behind it. I've been wearing this for a couple weeks now, and no one's noticed it. And it's not like a hardship to wear. Whereas, you know, part of the sales pitch is like, you know, if you say, oh, our staff have handheld radios, which is something we purchased, but, you know, this is around your neck. Handheld radio might be on your desk across the room or whatever. So, and kids like, yeah. So.
Is there are there any districts around us or near us that use this system?
Yeah. So Medina Buckeye, they're ones that Fox News featured as far as they're installing it this summer. And then Western Reserve, which is south of us, they're also, they purchased it and they're installing it this summer for next school year. So
Is this new?
This is
That's
new.
why there's no school districts that actually have it installed around us?
yeah,
Because
correct.
it's that new?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does it only identify where they're at if they hit it, or if, like, can you see where a teacher is at any time?
Yeah, no, only when they activate it. So they have to do the 3-push hit, and then it'll track them for 90 seconds there. So little kid has a bloody nose, you're clicking it because you're coming down, you want help with that student. The principal could see, okay, they're starting to move towards, you know, the office or whatever. So it does not track them during, and it's only on the campus. So it creates this like Bluetooth mesh, and so it does go outside, but you know, once you're off the campus, you could push as many times as you want. No one's gonna know. And so even our bus drivers could have it because if they're coming in the morning and someone's had a rough morning, they can click that, and the principal goes, "I got to go to that bus right now." So it helps with that communication piece. Yeah. Yep.
I think just from the playground standpoint, injuries happen, and for teachers to not have to like somebody leave to go inside to notify or use a cell phone, which they may or may not have on them. That's really great for overall student safety of bringing somebody to, and they can just fully attend to that student while still keeping an eye on other students on the playground. So
When I heard the
great
demo, I'm like,
resource.
it's kind of a no-brainer. Right?
Yeah,
I mean,
like
once you get past the cost,
How is it taking this long for?
Yeah, so
You know, that's great.
that's good.
great.
But very good.
I have a comment about stipends, and I know I talked to you already, but I do want to go on record. Just make sure that everybody that's receiving a stipend understands what their duties are, and they follow up and they do them, and we make sure the person who has hired them is following up with them and making sure they're getting paid.
Yeah, that's a good point. You know, the administrators administer that. They have this list of people, workers that they can use. They need to train the workers on the front end and make sure they're performing that work. And when they're not, train them again, and then at some point it's you're not cutting it. We got to cut you loose. So yeah, that is a good point. And yeah, the list has for some tasks it has multiple people. So if there's someone that is just not working out, we can move to the next on the list. But yeah.
Okay, Mr. DeMarco.
Hartley.
Yes.
Mrs. Mast.
Yes.
Dr. LaFay.
Yes. Okay, and item 9 is a motion to approve the resignation of Mr. DeMarco as the Huron City Schools treasurer, effective July 31st, 2023. August 1st.
July 31st.
Oh, well,
Yeah, so so working with payroll, we put the last day that they've worked. So it's the resignation is effective at the end of the day of that last day worked. So the way that payroll and I read the letter, it's he's gonna fulfill duties through July 31st, and August 1st you're done with. Yep. Right. So that's why we're putting that date. Yep.
So do we have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. Thank you. Any further discussion?
Paul, thank you for being with us in this big transition year. We appreciate your service to the district and everything you've done, and it's been a pleasure to work with you on Finance Committee. Thank you.
I echo that, Paul. Thank you for what you've done, and I wish you well in your next endeavor, and hope that that adventure is what you are looking for.
Mr. DeMarco?
Yes.
Yes.
Mrs. Sinners.
Yes.
Dr. LaFay. Mrs. Hartley.
Yes.
Mr. Jones.
Yes. I want to wish you the best also. Hey. Item 10, community representative reports. Do we have any?
And at the Joint Rec District by the planners of the park out on Berlin Road last week. It was fascinating, and they're doing a lot of thinking about keeping things as natural and maintenance free as possible, which is really nice, and I think it's going to be a nice endeavor.
There's Wednesday, so next month.
Shattering Hobie news. Scholarship awards night, which was pretty firing. So I'm enjoying that. Okay. Next then is item B. Shawnee auction.
Since we don't, can I ask a question?
Sure, of course.
I don't see that we have anything on here for new business this evening. So with the community representative report, I know, you mentioned that you went to Ehovie's scholarship recognition. I've had several people in the community approach me about the fact that, we do the signing for our athletes. And people were wondering, would it be possible to consider doing some kind of recognition? I don't know if it would be a signing or something, but for our academic achievements for our students, like our students that are graduating summa cum laude, to have some kind of recognition for them.
Yeah,
or a student that's signing, maybe got a full ride to college, and recognizing them in an assembly. Just that was brought up by
that's a
some
good
community
idea.
members.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Previously, we would have these athletic signings as kids said, "Hey, I want to do one," right?
Right.
And so we started in the spring here, and moving into next year, we'll have a day for the fall, a day for the winter, a day for the spring. But yeah, I mean, we could definitely. I'm going to look at you. Yeah. We could definitely do one more academically driven, or just make it a simply senior commitment day, and they're signing something that says, "I'm committing to this, college, university, institution, vocational school,
Or even
armed
military
service."
service.
Yep,
Yeah.
armed service.
Well,
Is that, do we do that with the social media? Isn't there a dedicated channel for student recognition of that?
Yeah, the
'Cause
state
there's
of
so many.
Ohio has a Armed Service Day. I thought it was a little early this year. I thought it was like mid-April, and maybe they weren't yet committed. And then I know that a couple Mondays ago we had College Commitment Day. We didn't necessarily have a signing ceremony, but
Right.
like yes, so we could make those either make those events more robust, or just dedicate ourselves to having a spring day for those non-athletic commitment days. Yeah.
And even I know Ehovah used to do it. I don't know if they still do it, but even we have students that directly from high school enter the workforce and are really gainfully employed once they enter the workforce, and just to acknowledge that achievement would be really neat, and to have that business owner come with that student to acknowledge that, yeah.
I really strongly believe that every kid, when they graduate, they should know what their next step is. They should know where they're going next. And sometimes districts will produce like a, college they're going to record. And when you have that list of like undecided, I'm like, that's a disservice for those kids. They should know either I'm going to college, I'm going to work, I'm going to the trades or military. By the time it's May of senior year, you should have an idea of where you're going. Now, your plan could change, right? Because life happens and things change, but you should have an idea of where you're going, and we should celebrate that. So that's a great suggestion.
Thank you.
I know I'm glad you brought that up. I know I've seen in the past, across from the office, there was a board that used to say, such and such, I've been accepted to, I'll say Harvard just because I've been accepted here, I'm going to Ohio State. I don't know if they're still doing that, but
I haven't seen it if they are.
Oh, middle school.
Where's that?
Middle school. We normally have an assembly every year where the people that are graduating with honors get recognized, and then you get like your academic letter at the end of the year. I haven't heard anything about when that is this year. And then just like regarding where like
Thinking of, yeah.
a couple seniors run it, so when like a senior can like send in where they're going to college. But so they're
Suggestion.
yeah. And thank you for bringing that up. I used to stop and look at it. I was back because everybody was. No.
I just think the more we can acknowledge what our students are doing, absolutely athletically, but we're in the business of educating kids. And if we're not championing their education and the things that they're doing that are outstanding, there's something wrong. So
That's our core business. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Anything else? All right. Next subject is the Shawnee auction, which I believe we confirmed the date, right?
Yeah. So
We have a date set up or just
no, I would say we have an auctioneer, and he knows our window is early to mid-July for the actual auction because our desired turnover date is September 1. So he did the backwards planning to say, well, then that puts you at early to mid-July, and he did backwards from that the marketing that he wants to do for that. So really, I think early to mid-July, and then whatever the Monday is or whatever he says is the date, the actual date to open, I think is fine. The other item he asked for, though, is what is that reserve, or he summarized it, it's the starting bid. So what is the minimum bid that the district would accept in order to sell the property? Something less than that, and we would not sell through the auction. So I guess that was kind of the discussion that has to happen still.
should we have included action, like a vote on that also, instead of just a discussion?
The category is discussion action.
Right.
Yeah. So I would say if the discussion leads to that, then we can get a motion.
Oh, sorry. I printed it too early.
Here.
I believe it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Keep me straight, you know, it's like a
Well,
full-time job.
I think when we,
I printed this probably earlier today.
Oh, yeah, it's not giving me the option of I'll manually do the vote, but something with Board Docs.
So I guess we just, oh, sorry. Okay. So I guess we just need to discuss and finalize. Number one, if we want to set a reserve, which I think we probably already
Have to.
in agreement. Well, you don't have to.
You have to have a starting price.
But it would make sense. But no, it's not a requirement.
Instead of $1.
Right, yeah. But, so yes, so I need to set a reserve, so.
Can you remind us of the appraisal?
So the land appraised with the building at around 1.6 million. Schools are tough to value. I mean, I've talked to Amherst because they recently demoed a building they didn't sell. But it's hard. Sandusky has sold buildings for $5. Margaretta, it typically don't bring a lot, but this is, I think, a unique situation because we're not just selling a building, we're selling the property too. And 6.6 acres in this location, especially with the two ways in and out, has value. And we have multiple parties interested for use. So there is value. You know, it's roughly, it would probably be about $1 million to demo the building, if that's what they wanted to do. So we don't exactly know the intent of the buyers or, you know, the people that we don't know that are still out there that could be interested. But, you know, that kind of gives a guideline for, you know, the appraised value is 1.6 million. You know, unfortunately, the school building itself devalues the land a bit, but you know, my first thought was we just have to offload it. You know, we just have to, because there's no savings until we offload it. But seeing that we do have multiple parties interested, and it did appraise higher than I thought, so you know, I wouldn't recommend going less than 600,000 as a reserve. If you take the value minus if they wanted a demo, and start there. Again, there's really nothing else to compare this to. So this has to be really from the board. What do you feel in your gut that this is worth? This is a one-time opportunity to maximize on this asset. The district is going to need money going forward. This would help a lot to give us a pause to get to the master facility planning. You know, if we could, it's an amount for this, it does provide time for the district to really plan for the long term. So unfortunately, you know, I'm quant and numbers and black and white, but that it doesn't really work completely for this. You need to.
I have a question.
Okay.
So, can someone help me understand the starting point, or I'm sorry, what did you call the number? The reserve. So is that the minimum bid? And so if someone only bids the minimum bid and no one bids higher than that, do we have the ability to say we're not selling it? Or do you have to sell it at that minimum bid?
That's correct. If we set the reserve and someone starts there and there's no other bids, then that person would win that purchase. Yeah.
So why wouldn't we set it higher than
I think
600,000?
some might have strategy and, you know, set it at something reasonable. And because we think we have multiple parties interested, if we set it at something reasonable, it won't scare any of those parties away, and then they can have a bidding war between themselves and drive up that cost to what you'll actually go for. Because remember, the alternative is we do the auction process, it doesn't sell. Now we can go and just do a direct sale through a realtor or through ourselves and sell it. Some would say, well, you have leverage with an auction because you can get people to bid against each other and whatnot. Whereas if you're trying to do a straight sale, it could be more difficult. But Yeah.
So how do we justify, you know, just hypothetically, how do we justify to the taxpayers who own this building that we set the minimum bid at $600,000 and say, you know, there is some kind of bidding back and forth for 1.6 million, and then we set it at 600 and say it sells for 800,000? How do we justify that? How do we justify that to
Yeah.
you know, I'm just asking. You know,
And I don't think, I think that would be difficult to justify. You know, it's not like, I mean, if it doesn't sell at auction, then we have the opportunity to put it at the market and we can still divest. It will give us a sense of what the market will bear for. And if we've set a reserve that there's nobody bidding on it, then we know we'll need to start somewhere lower. So I feel like it's either way. If it doesn't go at auction, you know, there's a next course of action, and we'll have more information
And I think
to chart that course.
for us, we're trying to sell it, right? We want to dissolve our responsibility of maintenance of this building, especially an empty building. Those are really hard to maintain because they're just not being lived in. It would be different if, like I shared my story about my previous district, they did an auction of farmland. It didn't sell. 10 years later, they then went to the open market and sold it. And that auction from 10 years ago counted as that required auction. But 10 years had passed and a lot of things had changed in 10 years as far as property and da. So we're not in that. We're interested in selling it. We have to do it first through the auction. As soon as that auction's over and if it's not successful, I think we're going to be trying to sell it again. So that's why part of me feels like, well, we set it at a reasonable bid. You know, if the assessed value is at 1.6 and we are going to estimate based on others that to tear this building down would be $1 million. So that's where you get to the 600,000. Because if we're thinking like a land investor, that potentially makes sense on the formulas that they use. I'm not a land investor, but then to me, it sounds justifiable, right? If we put it with a reserve of 600 and the bids start coming in and we get something more than 600, then I think it's, well, we did better than we wanted, right? And ultimately, if it doesn't sell for that reserve, then we're trying to sell it on the market, and we're probably looking at ourselves saying, well, now
Size building a few years ago. It was an OFCC project, but around 800,000 with the help of OFCC. So
It's just so black and white about the numbers, but if you look about Huron, there's not a lot of property for sale, and especially for residential growth, and which is sorely needed. I think anybody coming in here with that prospect is gonna really have a higher value in mind for the property. So I don't know. I think looking at black and white numbers, I would set that a little higher personally.
right. And again, the 600,000 it's the floor. You know, I don't want to get stuck on that number. So
Can I make a motion?
Yes.
I'll just,
Okay.
so, I mean, I think this is art, not science, right? Because you don't have like these hardcore comparators like you would for a home or something like that. If I propose we go 50% of, we put the reserve at 800, I think that gives us, at least we know we're weeding out, I don't say jokers, but like we're weeding out, you know, and we know that we're not, ideal, I'd love to get to $1 million, but I worry we weed out or we scare away, which we don't want, right? We want enough people interested in the auction. And then when you get sucked into the auction, my limited experience in going to auctions, too bad we can't serve wine with this particular process, but you know, then I think people start to get competitive, or they can start to make plans in their head, right? But if the price is so high that they're like, I'm not even getting in. So that would be my proposal. I do think. I mean, again, the reserve is the floor. It's not the, and our goal is that, and we know we have some interest that is likely, hopefully, to go up against each other. And I think we see what some of these multifamily housing units in this area are going for. So I think even at $1 million, you know, $1.5 million, it does leave, you know, depending on what they're building, what their plans are, I think room for somebody to buy it do what they need to do. Who knows if there's not grant money or something out there to help with the demolition of a building like this for that purpose, especially if it's low income or some type of affordable housing. That might be, you know, there might be resources for, and then hopefully somebody can make a go of. That would also hopefully generate property tax that would come back to us. So it would hopefully give us, you know, income streams in two ways. So I propose $800,000 for a roofer.
Second?
I'll second.
Okay, discussion, more discussion? I just want to add that, in some of my travels, I've been at a couple of meetings, both the Board Leadership Institute and then the Ohio High School Athletic Association meeting I went to, and then I actually talked to a couple treasurers. I've asked probably no less than a dozen people, including some people at OSBA, how do you arrive at a reserve price? And there's no formula, obviously, I guess for a lot of reasons. Obviously, every place, you know, Margaret has a building and it's out in the cornfield or something. Ours is more urban or whatever you want to say. But I was fascinated by that and disturbed at the same time because I had the same feeling you did. I said, well, if somebody says, how'd you arrive at that? Well, we flipped the coin. It was heads, 600,000 was tails. And I sure would like to have something more to it. But apparently, from the people that I talked to, and I couldn't see going anywhere but in the state of Ohio, because again, I didn't ask any local realtors. I didn't, you know, so maybe there's other people we could have touched. But so truly, it is up to us. And said I tried to find some nice plug-in, you know, that this makes sense. But so anyway, anybody else have anything to add?
I think that's low. I think that's lower than I would estimate whether somebody wants to use the building or not. We have no idea. I mean, there are developers who focus specifically on buying school buildings and converting them for adaptive reuse. There are some in Ohio that do that. We know that city projects trying to develop ConAgra with housing. There's going to be a huge expense with trying to do the infrastructure and run utilities. There's utilities already servicing this now. They may need to be updated, but they exist. So I would, I guess, ask to consider something higher. I know the motion is at 800,000, but I would urge us to think higher than that. I would say at least $1 million as a starting point.
Yes, worst case scenario. Well, truly, worst case scenario would be that only one person would come out. Then we kind of have we're having to sell it ourselves. So
We need to address the motion on the table
Yes.
right now, and then if
Yeah, if
that
there's
doesn't pass, then we can
If
introduce
there's-
another motion.
If there's no further discussion.
Let me throw out one more just thought, and I hear you because I oscillate between those two, like kind of numbers myself. But if for some reason we're coming at this wrong, and if for some reason the cost of demoing this is some ridiculous amount that renders, you know, a multifamily housing project economically tricky, ConAgra is a tough comparator because the city's doing quite a bit of subsidizing, right? And who knows if there's that same opportunity for this. You know, the other option that we've been at, but that's been advocated for us to look at is, you know, leaving this building open for educational purposes for a nonprofit to come in and add $800,000. Does that? We've been clear that the auction process, we're going to maximize the opportunity, right, for this building. So there's no question, it's a public asset. We owe it to the public to put it in a process where it can get the most value. But if for some reason multifamily housing is not a viable avenue, so it's $800,000 reserve, leave room for, you know, one of these non-education associations or even community organizations to come in and buy this building for a different purpose. And we still get the value of offloading it and like capping our financial responsibility to keep it, going. That's the only other thing I would throw out there is, does it slightly level the playing field for both of those avenues, and then we let the market do what the market does. And if, the multi thing, then the auction will prove that out. If not, then this gives, a little bit of window for these nonprofit entities to at least have a fight. I just throw that out there. So.
Yeah, and I think I think we could try to go through the what ifs and variables and the scenarios. We have no idea what somebody might want to do with this. We have no idea, and as we've talked about before, I'm afraid if we think, well, this might allow somebody to get it for a deal, we have no guarantee that the person wouldn't buy that, take advantage of that deal, and then turn around and sell it for a bigger profit because it is more profitable and worth more money, and then we've just left money on the table. So I guess I say that just because I feel like the only thing we know is we want to divest of this property. The only thing we know is it's 6.6 acres. We know there is not another parcel this size with utilities running to it with this prime visibility and location available in the city limits. We know that there is at least one parcel for sale that has an older building on it that is vacant for $400,000 for less than 1 acre. So even at $1 million, this is a huge deal compared to other things that might be available within city limits with great visibility, with great access to Route 2. So that's all
Well, we went in, I guess just to finish, like, your thought though is the auction process, like, the person with the most money is going to win that process. But we're not subsidizing, we're not giving away anything. My point is, if for some reason we're assuming that there's somebody out there who wants to spend $1 million, $1.2 million, $1.5 million, and maybe there is, and if there is, this process will weed that out, right? And that person will win. But if there isn't, my point is, if a reserve is at $1 million, we price out any option below $1 million. If the reserve's at 800, then at least it leaves a little bit of space for some other avenue. And that's what I throw out there. I don't see how we the district, loses in that, because what you're saying, that 6.6 acres is super valuable, then like people are gonna fight for it and we'll reap the benefit.
So I think at the end of the day, I'd probably be personally pretty disappointed if we only got 800,000 for it, which is a possibility if that's our low end. I think I'd feel a little less bad if we got $1 million for it. And if it didn't go for $1 million, then we could go back to market, and maybe those the nonprofits that you're talking about would have a chance to.
I guess I hear what you're saying. I hear what Stacy's saying and what Beth is saying. At the end of the day, I think our responsibility as a board is to direct the sale of this building and to get the top dollar for the sale of this building. As much as I would love to have there be the ability for a nonprofit center or something to be able to have this, I don't believe that's our responsibility to, price it at a level that, someone who isn't able to afford the $1 million then feels like they can. I think our responsibility is to get the top dollar for the building. So I don't know, but I understand what you're saying, and I think it's great, but I also, I think we need to vote on the
If everybody's
motion. Yeah.
doesn't have anything to add, I don't want to rush it. Yep. Okay, Mr. DeMarco.
All right, Mrs.
Can we clarify what the motion is?
The motion is for the $800,000
Okay.
for the reserve. Let me type for the reserve. Also add the time frame. Lot
Certainly.
mid-July.
Well, we're changing the motion.
Oh, okay.
We're changing the motion. Go ahead and make it $1 million. July 1st. Let's just. I'm reading the room.
You got a birthday you gotta get to.
I got a birthday.
Okay, so we're amending
We're amending
the
the
motion.
motion. There we go.
Stacy, and we're making it 1,000,000, and then we're adding a range of dates? Is that what you're asking for? By a
Set a
certain
So I
date
can
or something?
have something just.
I understand. Well,
July 1st or later.
What?
But the auction can take place July 1st or later.
Date. No
Like
later.
no later than July 15th or something? What makes the most sense?
Runs. Yeah. 17th? Monday?
Okay. So, we need a second.
I will second
Right.
Thank you very much.
the amended motion.
Okay, any new discussion? Hearing, so Mr. DeMarco?
Mrs. Henners.
Yes.
Mrs. Bass.
Yes.
Mrs. Hartley.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Jones.
Yes. Thank you, everybody. I think that went real well. Appreciate that. And thanks, Paul. Okay, so next is the treasurer. I named it succession plan because I didn't know what else to name it. So basically, the things we need to start looking at, and I don't know, do you want to lead this or?
Start, I guess. So I guess with Paul's departure, July 31st, we need to start that recruiting and then interviewing and selecting his replacement. So I guess two things to discuss, or maybe more, is anytime there's a change in a significant leadership position, it creates angst among those in the organization. So definitely Cindy and Sue in the treasurer's office are right there today, a little anxious, but also just in general, staff in general. Our fiscal leader is going to be changing again, and so we don't want to delay the process or elongate the process. People would like to know who the new fiscal leader is going to be for Huron. Yeah, right. So, I mean, really, you guys have run this script before recently, and that's good because you have that experience. The question is, do I need to start working to recruit a potential interim so that leading up to Paul's departure, and then if we're still in the search process, we know we have a fiscal agent. And then the other question is for that search process. Last time we used OSBA, and they provided their service. There's other services out there. There's also districts that don't use the service. So it's really discussing that. And if the discussion leads to, well, we'd like to talk to some services, OSBA and others, or we know what OSBA does, so we just want to talk to the others, then I can work to make those arrangements, and then we can find a date and have that meeting, late May or June, so then we know if we're going to go that way. So it's really a discussion for the board as far as, one, should I be working to find a potential interim if needed? And then two, do we want to do a search firm, or is there another way we want to approach this?
Recently
Okay.
of all the companies, and we went with OSBA intentionally. I feel like you interacted with them the most, Jody, especially on the flip side, offering contracts and stuff. Did you?
I found Terry very helpful. I think we have a couple options that we could look at. I think probably the number one question we need to answer first is, do we need James to look for an interim? I think that is going to be the number one question, because if you guys remember, the interview process takes time. And last year at this time, we weren't interviewing. We already,
It's off cycle.
yeah, we're off cycle. So it's going to be an interesting process.
I think I was bringing up the
Mhm.
agency first
Yeah.
because that will
Yeah.
determine how quickly the hiring
Yeah.
process.
I guess it depends on, do we want to spend X amount of dollars to use OSBA? Or do we want to spend $0 and use North Point? Because the other two, I think it was the other two companies that interviewed, they were markedly more expensive. And I guess I kind of get the idea that aside from North Point, some of the other big marketing companies, I have to imagine they draw from the same pool because they're professional companies. Draws from this area. So I think we need to decide how we want to go about it. $0, or do we want to spend some dollars? We felt that spending dollars last time was advantageous for us, and I think it was.
Actually, off cycle. I mean, the treasurer candidate pool wasn't that large.
Correct. And I don't think the
off
pool is
cycle
large
is
now.
probably going to be smaller.
Yeah.
Sure, thoughts on what that would look like.
I would
we
probably
used North Point last time.
yeah, we
So
used
does
North
that-
Point last time, so I would probably start with talking with them about what provider options they have, and then the other could be WASBO, the school like treasurers professional organization, reaching out to them to say, hey, here's our need, because they may have a list of recently retired treasurers who are retired, but they're looking for some time to fill their day. So that could be an option that maybe they're not within North Point Circle. And then the third could be like a service provider that's not necessarily a treasurer, but they could sign off as the fiscal agent. And it might, when you call them with a question, it might be a different person that answers, but like legally we have someone managing the finances. I wouldn't really, I'd prefer not that one, but
yeah, that doesn't address our team here.
Right. Right.
No treasurer license.
That's correct. Yes.
How? Did you understand that?
So my understanding is that person has to complete their 300 hours of internship service, and then they can apply for their treasurer's license through Ohio Department of Ed. I also know area districts who have employed someone on the pathway but not yet holding the license, and then they have another treasurer who's overseeing and signs off on their work. So again, that's someone who is projected to have their license but not yet holding it. And so they take that, and there'd be a condition in their employment agreement that if they don't have it by X date, then they're done, right? So
Turn that out a little bit more. Just having personally having this position is difficult to fill, and I think you have.
right.
It's kind of a known quantity, and then could you get that opportunity to pair them with a good mentor, and then have a see like a search process again, which was tricky, and then we get into even the price of a candidate becomes difficult. And it's one thing to another thing to sign up for it, and definitely a really high rate of pay. So to me it'd be interesting to at least flesh that out, because we have this rare and unique situation where we have someone pursuing the treasure.
So
It's a good math teacher. So.
right. So
Yes or no on that.
if we wanted to like formally consider that, I could open a posting tomorrow and see who applies and look at the candidate pool without using a search firm or anything like that. And go through that process. And through that posting, if we don't find any qualified candidates, then we pivot to another one, right? So I wouldn't want to spend a lot of time doing that.
But in the meantime, you could still talk to North Point.
I can still talk to North Point about
I mean,
it.
we wouldn't have to wait for an answer.
No, no, no.
We had Betty part-time,
Right.
so we already kind of know the salary range, right? That we-
Would be a daily rate kind of, yep.
I would say the answer to your question, yes, we would like them to pursue.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that, I
Right.
think that's an absolute.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
we're talking,
But
you know,
I guess I'm trying to just like wrap my head around this. If we entertain the thought of growing someone internally, which I always think if you can grow someone within your organization is a wonderful idea. And a treasurer?
Is the person would have to work with somebody who's experienced and has a treasurer's
Yeah,
license
but I don't think it
for
has to
the
be like
hours.
necessarily like a 200% headcount. I mean, you know, before you're talking about like having maybe an assistant superintendent or assistant treasurer. Let's take it for example, or so whatever you want to call it, and then you would have that person do a lot of the tactical day-to-day stuff. You just need someone, you know, more experienced who can oversee and sign off. So, yeah, I've not done this job, so I don't know that to be the case, but
My first job, I had a license coming in, but my predecessor also served as my mentor. So she retired, so she was gone for 60 days, but then she had basically a per diem contract. So at first it was like 1 day a week she would come in the office after her 60 days. And then, you know, it was like once a month, you know, we talk by phone. So if you have that person in place, it's not like having a second full-time salary. And then, and this was part of hers fell off, and then what she was paid just got absorbed into my contract. So it might take longer than a year, depending on the candidate, but a nice blanket to have, and honestly, it's not adding a second, especially if it's somebody that's retired and you're not paying them benefits and all that other stuff.
And I guess my other question is, and this may be a crazy question, do we need a full-time treasurer in our district?
Yes.
I'm just asking.
Two would be better.
I'm just asking. You know, you don't ask, you don't know.
Well, and I'm just thinking of, you know, everything going on for district and central office, going in, the move, the transition, making sure everybody, staff, students are all settled and have everything they need, going through, trying to go through a search like right now, even trying to get somebody, I think that is just diverting the energy way too much for central office. So if we can find an interim, and I think exploring the option of if there's somebody that was already planning on becoming that totally makes sense. See if there's an interim that's willing to serve in that capacity to help with the licensure piece. I think that's a nice path. And if not, you know, it gives us some time to figure that out. And then we can be ready by December that we know we want to move forward with. We need to move forward with a search, and then we would be on the early side of that cycle. A lot of contracts coming up, or I think treasurers need to know by like March if they're going to be renewed.
Right? That we
And we were
started.
early. Mm-hmm.
So you're saying an interim with a mentor, so that in January we could then do a full search.
No, I'm saying go interim with the idea that it could be somebody, if all the pieces fell. If we had an interim who's willing to serve as that mentor, if that would fit that need. But I feel like that also would give us some time that we don't have to feel like we have to hire a search firm next week. It gives you guys all breathing room to continue focusing on building consolidation and the move and everybody getting up and running for the start of the school year.
So one of them has to have a treasurer's license.
Yeah, the interim is right.
The official interim, yes.
It's what another district in Erie County is doing right now.
Similar to what Perkins is doing right
Exactly.
now. So that's a good model.
Exactly.
I don't know all the details, but that's essentially what they're doing.
Yeah.
Exactly. If they had somebody with a financial background, but not a school financial background, who's essentially, it's almost like an apprenticeship, right? And they're an assistant treasurer. They're hiring, I don't know who they're hiring as a treasurer, but that would
No,
be.
it's him.
It's gonna be him.
He's moving in. Betty will step out. Betty's the treasurer's.
She's then.
And she will then step out,
Yep.
and he will assume the treasurer position.
Okay.
So she's as an interim serving as that mentor for him to get his hours. Yeah.
So to be clear, we're talking about asking James to call around for interim candidates to North Point and also putting out a job posting tomorrow. That's what.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I'm
Is that
exactly
how,
right.
is that the understanding?
And can I make a motion? Is it too early?
I don't know how to take notes on it.
I don't know.
Don't need it.
I don't know that we need it.
Okay.
I don't know.
Thank you.
So, everybody's
Yeah,
agreeable to
I
this?
agree.
Okay, so we're not actually taking a vote, we're just agreeing in a discussion? And that's permissible?
Sure.
Okay.
You're not hiring.
Yeah,
Right.
we're not really doing
We're just,
anything.
yeah.
Recorded.
Okay.
Wow. Dial.
Okay. Moving on. Moving on.
All
We
right,
can all go
so-
check it out.
All right, so we're done with that. Thank you very much again, everybody. There is not an executive session planned. So, next on the agenda would be just the next meeting. Monday, June 19th at 6 p.m. And with that, we just need a motion to adjourn.
Really quickly,
Sure.
I should probably mention I'm not gonna be in town on June 19th. So, well,
There's somebody you can send in your place.
it may become important with this treasurer decision making, so I'm just kind of throwing it out there. I guess you guys will have a quorum anyway, so never mind.
Consider like a special meeting if need be,
Well, sure.
so we move faster
At some
than
point.
June 19th. If
Well-
we get pieces on place, right?
Correct. Yes.
So
Yeah, there may be a-
We're well versed in special.
Yes.
we got there.
At least we have to experience at something.
We just
We'll have
went down
pizza
to
at
my
our,
meeting
this
at
time we're
lunch.
getting pizza. Okay, so do we have anything else? I'm sorry, again, I don't want to rush. Motion to adjourn?
So,
Okay.
so move. A second.
So we're all in favor of adjourning, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Again, thank you
Best meeting
so much.
ever.
Not
Speak
that we
up
were going
anytime.
for that, but nice.
Thank you all for staying. I'm impressed. You know, we don't have any prizes or anything for you.
Class meeting
I'll
at
try
8
to work on
o'clock
it.
for my new class.
I will do an answer to you.
Hey, yeah, no problem.
I know that's not.
I'll hold on to
Big
these.
This is
for you.
class you're taking, right?
Would you mind passing this down to Dr. Tapp?
Not at all.
Oh, yes, that's right. Oh, we can do that.
Do you just
You want to just do it up there? Or?
play it across the table?
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm gonna pretend that that.
Oh, you guys would never. Yeah.
Where do you want it to go?
Let's go here. Behind the exact.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Oh,
That's
okay.
fine.
Take my stuff off the chair.
Water.
Put the microphones down.
Oh, yes. Okay, everybody.
Okay.
Are we tight enough, or do you want us tighter?
Enough?
Great. All right.
Did you want to take?
While we're here,
Since you're shorter, do you want to? Or I guess I was just because
John. Taller.
Yeah. Do you wanna
Oh,
have
it's, yeah, okay.
I can
There,
always
she
move over.
scooched. She scooched over.
Okay, there you
Is that better? Thank you. Oh, she's back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I know, that's crazy.
Is that also a cell phone? Thank you, everybody. It was a very good meeting, I thought.
Yeah.
Okay.